Seattle Atheist Church, because good works in non-mysterious ways.
Thank you. So temperance sounds like a really old-fashioned word, old-fashioned concept. So I'm going to talk today about why it is, in fact, a very modern and relevant concept and why we should care. I'm going to talk about a few different aspects of temperance and the word. So I want to start off with what I'm not talking about, which is necessary since the word has taken on a really specific historical meaning. The temperance movement was the 19th and early 20th century social and political movement that led to the prohibition of alcohol in the United States from 1920 to 1933. And prohibition is generally considered to have been a failure since, since the black market demand for alcohol created organized crime. It created temptations to make alcohol in unsafe ways that poison people. But despite this now very strong association of the word temperance with this ill-advised attempt to eliminate alcohol from existence, that's not what the word meant originally, and it's not how the movement started. It started with attempts to moderate the use of alcohol and to reduce the destructive effects of alcohol on society and on individual people's lives. It was in a social context in which heavy drinking had become really common, and it was contributing to things like poverty, disease, and domestic violence. The abandonment of women and children was a really frequently struck note in materials about favoring prohibition. Defend the women and children, cut out the alcohol, then the men will treat them better. And in that context, they were completely helpless. If husbands and fathers were neglectful or abusive, they basically had no recourse and no support. So here are a few, I need to make this big again. Few little images from this meaning of prohibition or of temperance. Oh, I need to be able to share, Jack.
There you go. Try now.
Thank you. All right. So one little note, drinking leads to neglect of duty. So very, very much a moral statement. We've got the representation of alcohol as being to blame for domestic violence. We've got, that's not the one I want to do yet. And we've got this progression of the drunkard, the drunkard's progress. He starts off just taking a little innocent social drink. He's happy and socializing at the top, and then he ends up impoverished and suicide at the end. But notice underneath this archway, we have the woman and child sobbing as their house burns down. It's all very heavy-handed, but this is the context that this meaning of the word temperance comes out of. So it's understandable that it kind of washed out previous, more general meanings. So what I am talking about here, I'm not talking about banning alcohol. I'm talking about our ability to keep or bring our own behavior within healthy and useful bounds. The dictionary definition, apart from the alcohol meaning that has become the primary and more familiar one, the Oxford English Dictionary defines temperance as the quality of moderation or self-restraint. And the online etymology dictionary, or Etym Online, says that in 14th century English, temperance meant self-restraint, forbearance, or moderation. It was considered a cardinal virtue and has been since ancient times. By the late 14th century, it came to mean mildness or gentleness, observance of a balanced or moderated course of action generally. It comes from Anglo-French, comes from Latin temperantia, meaning moderation, sobriety, discretion, or self-control. And this ultimately comes from the verb temperare, meaning to moderate. It's a form of the word temper, which has a lot of different meanings and associations. It can mean to mix or work up into a proper condition, put into proper proportions, moderate by mixture, bring to a proper state, modify some excessive quality, restrain within limits, measure, be moderate, restrain oneself, manage, rule, govern. It's related to tempus, meaning time or season. So things can be temperate if they are within season. It's also related to stretch. So there could be a sense from a shift from stretching to measuring at some point. Tempering steel is making it stronger by doing, I don't know all the details of blacksmithing work, but you heat it and hammer it and mix it with other metals. There's a bunch of stuff involved in tempering. And in connection with human, there's also a musical instrument. You tuning an instrument is tempering. When we're talking about human character, temper is our ability to moderate our anger and to respond in a measured or proportionate fashion to things that come up. Temperament means our personality, and this used to be conceived of as a balance of 4 humors. This next illustration is very interesting. This is an image of a balance of the 4 humors. Each quadrant is a different humor. We've got phlegm, blood, black bile, and yellow bile, and they all correspond to elements, one of the 2 sexes, and astrological signs, as well as moods or parts of our personality. This is some kind of weird imagery, but the idea is we've got all of these elements in our bodies, and they have to be in some kind of balance for us to be healthy and happy and decent people to interact with. When Shakespeare wrote, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate," he played on these multiple meanings of temperance, using one word to stand for both mild weather and a gentle, pleasant disposition. The medieval virtue of temperance is often represented like this. This is a painting by Piero del Pollaiuolo, by a woman pouring water from one vessel to another. You might notice kind of similar imagery in the last one, which I think is related. And this is the image used on the modern tarot card, where it's usually an angel, but sometimes a woman. 1 foot on rock, 1 foot in the water strangely pouring back and forth. But this is an embodiment of the concept of temperance, which is the meaning is listed for the Rider-Waite deck, or the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, as economy, moderation, frugality, management, accommodation. So this is almost the understanding of temperance that I'm talking about now. Finally, in its most modern context, temperance is one of the 6 virtues identified by researchers in the field of positive psychology. Positive psychology is the study of optimal mental health as opposed to just avoiding mental illness. Researchers including Martin Seligman, Chris Peterson, and Ryan M. Naimiak have analyzed psychological studies and worldwide cultural sources to find quantifiable, persistent character traits that are recognized as valuable and admirable across cultures and times, and which are linked through research to happiness, general mental and physical health, and other quality of life measures and positive indicators. So these are solidly research-based things, as well as being drawn from long tradition. They identified 24 of these character strengths, and they grouped them into 6 thematic clusters called the virtues. And here is the layout of those 6 virtues around the outside, and then the specific character strengths. Share that. So we've got the 6 virtues around the outside. Temperance is at the bottom there in blue. And then the specific character strengths are listed in each one. There's not the same number in each. It's not a numerical thing. It's just what went with what. So temperance describes strengths that help you manage habits and protect against excess. That is how the VIA Institute, which is the organization that did this research and presents it, describes the virtue of temperance. It includes the character strengths of forgiveness, humility, prudence, and self-regulation. So I'd like to talk a little bit about each of those. Forgiveness is the moderation of anger. It's a willingness to let offenses go and not let grudges and resentments continue. Forgiveness means seeing and accepting the faults of others or yourself and still seeing them as human. Healthy forms of forgiveness do not require letting yourself or others continue to be victimized, doesn't require condoning or forgetting or reconciling. Those are not necessary parts of forgiveness. What is necessary to forgiveness is not letting yourself be consumed by anger or thoughts of revenge. Forgiveness is letting it go, seeing the person as human, and not being obsessed with the anger over what they've done. You can keep in mind what they've done for future reference as you're dealing with this person or deciding not to deal with this person, but accept that that is the way they are. Humility, next one here. Humility is an acknowledgement of your own imperfections and limits, an allowance for others' possibly greater knowledge and skills, refraining from bragging, demanding attention, or exaggerating your abilities. But it also includes knowing your own strengths. Healthy levels of humility are consistent with positive self-esteem and recognizing your own good qualities. Accurate self-assessment, not low self-assessment, is the objective here. So really with all the strengths, there's a balance to be struck. So that's really where temperance comes to, is not having wildly high use of a particular strength, but not neglecting it either, being in a comfortable middle range where you can use the strength, but not have it take over everything. Then we've got prudence. Prudence, also an old-fashioned word. Prudence is the kind of wisdom that keeps us from making hasty and dangerous decisions. It's moderating risk, assessing pros and cons, having fallback plans. Healthy levels of prudence still allow us to act effectively and to take advantage of good opportunities. It should not leave us frozen in place because we can't act because there's some risk. It's assessing risk and then acting appropriately. Prudence includes planning ahead to make the best outcomes more likely and to handle possible complications. And then we hit the one that's kind of the core or the heart of temperance, which is self-regulation. Self-regulation is moderating our behavior and even our thoughts and emotions sometimes, so as to maintain healthy and effective habits and to avoid extremes that might harm our health, our relationships, our careers, etc. Where temperance is a really old-fashioned word, self-regulation has actually become a popular buzzword. Self-reg, short for self-regulation, is a popular book by Dr. Stuart Shankar about helping our children regulate themselves. And that's grounded in the idea that self-regulation doesn't require raw willpower to get through challenges, but rather arranging the context so that we don't need so much willpower. So the challenges are lower because we're in a better state to overcome them. There are hundreds of other books about self-regulation that are currently in print. I think I saw over 1,000 when I went and looked up the term. So this is a really popular theme right now. And it is really temperance. That's what we're talking about here. It's still seen very much as a moral thing. We talk about people who don't have any willpower, and that makes them bad or weak, but that's really not how self-regulation works. Willpower comes and goes. It's actually blood sugar in your brain. So this is that's not really a character trait. Being able to manage that resource in such a way that you can manage the challenges that come in front of you on a given day, that is our goal, right? We want to be able to handle the things that are probably coming. So a big thing about self-regulation is planning for what's going to come up next. Don't make it harder for yourself. So I'm going to talk about that a little more later. Self-regulation, those high in self-regulation can control their appetites and emotions well enough to have a good confidence that they can be effective in what they pursue and achieve their goals. They're admired for their ability to control their reactions to disappointments and insecurities. You know, someone who's a good loser has self-regulation. Self-regulation helps you keep a sense of balance, order, and progress in your life. It can be viewed as a resource that can be depleted and fatigued. It's kind of like a muscle. You can exhaust it by overexerting it, or you can strengthen it through regular practice. So we want to set it up so that we're not constantly having demands on our self-regulation skills, because we only have so much, really. So set things up so that you don't have to use it all the time for everything. So I want to talk about how to cultivate temperance, how to set things up for yourself. Temperance is perhaps most important when we're trying to change our habits. It takes humility to acknowledge that we're not already perfect and assess our current situation accurately and decide on a new path. If whether we have a habit we want to quit, maybe drinking, but it could be anything, or a new habit we want to pick up, that takes self-regulation to avoid temptation and manage frustration. It takes prudence, that is planning ahead, to set up your environment and your routines so that you have reminders of the behavior that you want to encourage. You have little cues to remind you to act, or to remove cues to the behavior you want to eliminate. So if you're strong in temperance, making adjustments to your behavior is likely to be pretty easy for you, which is great. That'll serve you really well. If temperance is a tough area for you, maybe these are not your core strengths here. Maybe they're really weak ones for you. Think about what other strengths you can use to support your temperance goals. You can always use whatever are your top strengths to shore up skills in weaker areas. So for instance, if you have great social and emotional intelligence, maybe you can keep in touch with a friend and you can each support each other's goals. If you've got similar goals, this can work really well and keep each other accountable. If you're highly creative, maybe you can make a picture that symbolically represents your goal and put it right where you'll see it to remind you to do the thing or not to do the thing. Maybe if you want to snack less, you can hang it on the fridge. Or if you want to exercise when you first wake up in the morning, put it where you'll see it when you first wake up, and it'll remind you to go put on your gym shoes or whatever. If you're strong in love of learning, maybe you can research the latest studies and the most up-to-date methods for your exercise goals or your language learning or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. If you're not sure what your strengths are, you can go and do the test at viacharacter.org. I will paste that into the chat here. I recommend this for everybody if you haven't done this. It's a helpful little thing. Let's see. There's the chat. There it is. And the link to the test is right there on the page. It's free to get it. You only have to pay if you want like fancy versions of it with all the details sent to you. But there's lots of free information on the site. So a key factor for temperance is to find ways to make your goal easier for yourself. That's not cheating. That's the point. It can be easy to think, oh, I should just like white knuckle this, but that's really counterproductive. You only have so much attention and energy that you can focus on doing the thing or not doing the thing when your current inclinations kind of go the other way. So figure out ways to reduce the temptations, the reminders, etc. If you know you tend to stay on your phone too late, if you pick it up after 10 p.m., that's me. Then set it to lock after 10 p.m. or charge it across the room from you, have an alarm clock or have to get up to go turn off your alarm. If you know you're likely to drink if you walk by the bar, then don't walk by the bar. Take a different route. If you act worse around certain friends, maybe spend less time with those friends for a while or spend time with them in contexts where it's not a problem. Save your willpower for when it's really necessary, when a situation is unexpectedly challenging, and you can use your habits and environmental cues for day-to-day management. A lot of this stuff is drawn from Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. Really recommend that book. I'll type that in here too. Tiny Habits, B.J. Fogg. He's the leader of the Captology Lab, the Habits Lab at Stanford, and they've come up with lots and lots of research about what works for different kinds of habit changes. If you're trying to reduce a habit, eliminate a habit, pick up a new habit, increase a habit, things like chaining on a new habit to an existing one, really strong, really helpful, takes much less willpower. You can just do this new thing. So a lot about temperance is thinking about how can I make this easiest so I don't have to use a lot of energy to accomplish what I want to do. If I'm not behaving exactly how I want to do, how do I want to tweak it and how do I make that easy? So what about, do we always want to be temperate? I mean, maybe there are times when we should just like go wild and be immoderate, imprudent, brazen, whatever. Maybe there are. Okay. Oscar Wilde said, everything in moderation, including moderation. Now, he was probably being cute and funny here. He usually was. But yeah, we don't want to always be trying to keep ourselves in tightly regulated bounds, right? There need to be times when we can relax and go crazy in a safe and comfortable way. Temperance serves us well in its season, and intemperance has its time and place, preferably a safe, comfortable place with people you trust to forgive you if you misstep and take care of you if you go overboard, not make fun of you too hard. So see, there I go, planning prudently for your potential imprudence. Basically, the idea here is think about when temperance is important and how you can focus the energies you have and make the rest of it not take that energy if you're trying to make a change. So think about the role temperance plays in your life, what more it could do for you, how you can foster it using your own strengths, whether they are temperance strengths or other strengths. Temperance is vital to happiness and success, and it'll improve your life if you use its strengths well. So I hope that you can find the keys to temperance and use them in ways that will help you.